Awesome. So we're going to get started. So as I mentioned, my name is Ali Boubard. I'm the curator at the Bill Reed Gallery of Northwest Coast Art. Welcome to our virtual panel discussion in conjunction with our current exhibition in the Mezzanine Gallery, NDN Giver. And we're joined this evening by the curator of the exhibition, Amelia Ray, and the three featured artists in the exhibition, Skil Jaadee White, Casey Hall, and Charlie Brown. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the Bill Reed Gallery is located on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and we are so grateful to the original caretakers of the land to be able to do our work in those beautiful territories. So our discussion today goes until probably just before 7 p.m. and we will leave some time at the end for discussion and to take questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, just save them till the end and then you can pop them in the chat and we'll go from there. But I think what I'll do now is just pass it over to our moderator for this discussion, Amelia, and she'll be able to start the discussion and introduce everybody. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Gurune Haskil, Hinedikian, Amelia Hinedikianisin, Haragwai, Studious Skagung, Wagin Outlagay Studious Skagung. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gurune Haskil, Amelia Ray. I am Haida from Old Masset, Haida and the curator of this exhibition. I think I want to ask everybody to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go by who's on my screen first. Charlie?
Hello, everybody. My name is Glathba, Charlie Brown. My current case chef name is Himaskin. I was passed that name down from my father last year. Glathba will be passed to my son this year, this summer. And from the Haitian Nation, started doing art more recently, learning with Casey Hall. I'm looking up to a lot of people that are doing art in the Celtic Nation and looking to learn and share some knowledge that I learned over the years through working archaeology and studying the Haitian farm line and history. Thanks.
Casey?
Hey, can you hear me? Just double checking. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I am Casey Hall. My Celtic name is Umpas Hasko, which is Celtic translated to Father of Elko Harbor, which I was given during my aunt, our matriarch's potlatch last year in September. I currently reside in East Vancouver, and I've been studying formline for the last 12 years. I think going on 13 now. And I've just been on the journey studying our people's art and doing my best to help keep it alive. So I'm happy to be here and excited to have a conversation with everyone.
SJ?
Hada Las Tulan Koyasis, Skil Jaadee Hinudikyang, Yaktuna Studious Gagung, Outlagay Di Nangung, Candice Iskian Christian, Di Yalanguichung. My name is Skil Jaadee. I come from the Yaktunas clan in Old Masset. That's where I live. My parents are Candice and Christian. A lot of my cultural roots come from the dedication that they've had throughout my lifetime to our culture. So like when I was 5 months old, my dad raised his first totem pole for his father for a chieftainship. And after that, or like for that potlatch, I was his first time Haida dancing. And that kind of like sparked, this whole like cultural renaissance in his life, I guess. And he started dancing, and my parents started learning the language, and I got to be a part of all of that with them. spending time with our elders and um, just watching them create and be a part of Potlatch. And yeah, now here I am.
Thank you. I'm so excited that all of you were a part of the exhibition. It felt very natural that I had all of you featured. You know, of course, we're all friends, but I really love watching all of you and how you show up for your community and for your people, and especially through the potlatch. Um, I'm gonna read a little bit about the exhibition just to get us started. So this exhibition was inspired by a mug in my Auntie Candace and Uncle Christian's kitchen, a mug that had been gifted at a potlatch and was part of, was sitting in a cabinet full of them. And it kind of just sparked some questions in me and I spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to us as potlatch people to give and to receive, and how much weight something as simple as a mug can carry. Um, let's see. Indian Giver explores the layered meanings within both everyday and extraordinary gifts that circulate through the potlatch. Blankets, coppers, canoes, prints, mugs, and trade beads strung into necklaces all become carriers of law, memory, and relation to one another. The title Indian Giver reclaims a phrase rooted in colonialism that mocked Indigenous generosity. And in reality, the practice of giving upheld in the potlatch reflects the complexity of responsibilities in Indigenous governance and exchange. To give is to strengthen ties, and to receive is to take on the responsibility of carrying them forward. This exhibition is not about the objects alone, but about the stories they carry and the obligations they enact. Whether a humble mug or a crest-bearing treasure, they act as a living archive of law, love, accountability, and kinship. So that's a little bit about the exhibition for those of you who didn't get a chance to see it. And I guess we'll just dive right into the questions. So the first one, and I think maybe we'll go in the same order as we introduced ourselves. In the development of your individual professional practices, how would you describe the influences of your cultural identity within your own practice? And what are the common cultural connections you find are always present?
That'd be me, I guess, right? All right, cool. Yeah, man, I guess ever since I was very young, I've been connected to my culture through my mom and dad, in a similar way to probably everyone else. And um, growing up, I just remember traveling to potlatches in Alert Bay, hanging out with my Uncle Edwin and my dad, listening to them talk about the history. And I've always felt that strong connection whenever I step onto the floor or the sand or wherever I am, or when I hear the drum beat and the song. So I use those heavily, those times when I'm designing or painting or currently trying my best to study all that history so I can help my people. And it's hard for me to, um, you know, it was hard for me to make the jump to become an artist because I'm also in the middle of like trying to be a father and all that. But my biggest goal currently is to carve and to paint and to make treasure boxes and um, masks and feast bowls for my people of the health sick. And that's what I'm currently thriving in. And it all ties back to just growing up and traveling and witnessing all of that. And now that we have a big house, I feel that for me, my personal goal is that it's just right that I'm learning at this time because my dad's receiving a chief name and my best friend will in the near future. And my son is growing up and he needs to see that we are who we are and that uh, I just want to be culturally strong for my people. And there's nobody like us here on the coast of BC. We potlatch, we're very ceremonial. If you haven't been to a potlatch, you just don't understand the power that you feel, or the look when you look around, you see people in their most natural state, and it's beautiful. It's such a great feeling when we gather from everywhere and we share food, we share songs, we share each other's space, and it's an unexplainable feeling that I could just never get over. And I think that's why right now I'm just enjoying my journey of where I'm at. Grateful, so grateful to KC for teaching me form line and constantly answering my questions to this day. From 3 years ago, I was just flooding his phone, and but we're growing together, and that's the rightful way to do it. And with the right thing in mind is just helping our people where we can, and then doing our best to survive as men. And yeah, so I mean, just that's basically my answer. Is just I've always been connected to the culture since I was young, like coming out after a potlatch, my parents would be singing for me for like 2 weeks. They always would tell me that, and so I'm excited to continue this journey as for now. And as of right now, I'm working on like 3 different masks for chiefs that I'll be gifting to them, and a rattle that I'm gifting to my best friend. So it's an amazing journey, and there's so much to learn, and I'm always humbled by visits to museums when I just see the mastery of our people, that we're doing this with minimal tools or stone tools, or it's just crazy and blows my mind. But it gives us something to strive for, and that's what we're all doing, I believe, in our own way. So yeah, just trying to keep it short, but thanks.
Me next, right? I guess, yeah. So based on that question and based on, what Charlie was just talking about, I didn't grow up having the same amount of culture in my life. Um, I was born in Bella Bella, but I was raised in East Vancouver my whole entire life. So um, when it comes to culture, like the deepest it got for me as a youth was being part of the dance group, the Urban Helsing dance group here. So that was the only little, part of culture that I really had. So I believe that's what led me into a world of like I always had the love for art since I was a kid. My mom's got journals from when I was in elementary school of me drawing robots and Garfield and all sorts of stuff, and just a lot of drawing going on. But when it comes to like my own identity and like just culture and belonging, I grew up in East Van where I had an artistic passion, but I didn't know where I fit in. And that led me into finding who I thought were my people, and they were in the bigger scope of things. And I was in the world of graffiti. It's where I felt like I belonged, where I had the same passion for everybody, for the same art that everybody else did. And um it was being young and super hungry to just produce art. And I didn't have the means, and we didn't have the same opportunities to continuously be around culture. So I took that as my own culture, and I wholeheartedly immersed myself into that whole entire thing. Um, so when it comes to like creating now and like where I'm at artistically now and where I'm at just mentally with and emotionally being invested within my culture and everything, like it feels really special to me to be able to do the things that I'm doing right now, because I didn't feel like I belonged artistically or culturally anywhere for the longest time. So it feels really good to yeah, continually do this work. And it's only getting crazier, and I'm still studying, I'm still learning. I mean, I realized when I said 12 years that I've been studying, it's been a lot longer than that. It's been well over 15 now, I believe. But I'm still learning to this day. And like Charlie as well, like I'm working on, like being a father and being present there where I need to be, and also trying to, like implement the nature and the culture of Northwest Coast Formline into my daughter's life without forcing it into her life, without overbearing her with trying to be the next me. I don't ever want that. So just like sprinkling it in there and letting her find her own artistic venture, and however she may want to do it. And right now she's having fun with it. She likes drawing. She's she's doing a lot. So it's great. And as well as, like being, like immersed in the culture of the art side of things, I've slowly become, like a teacher to people. And Charlie's been the number one so far as for who I'm dedicated to teaching what I know so far. And I don't know the same things that everybody else does. I'm only a painter as of now. Um, but studying form line and the design was something that was like very crucial to me, and I felt like I needed desperately to know how to do it properly, because there was moments where it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel correct. And I, like within my style that I do, I tried jumping into this contemporary thing very quick in my career, and that was the wrong thing to do. So stepping back, looking and studying, and reassessing what I need to do first is what I did. And like being able to teach Charlie and have him under my wing was, it's been an amazing 3 years so far. And Charlie's done a lot of work, studying Benwood boxes and Helsik style to the T for years before he even picked up the pencil to do it. So I believe that, like, he was like the perfect candidate to be able to launch this forward, because he already had the knowledge of all the form line and how structure works. He's seen it in and out. He can study the differences between very minuscule, like small details. So all it took was just putting what he knows through his brain down his arms into his hands. And it took a little bit, but not as long as I'd ever expected. And then once he got comfortable with that, it was like it's all downhill from there. But I never honestly expected to be where I'm at artistically right now within the amount of years that I've been studying. So being able to identify myself as a proud Helsik man now is something super special to me, because as a youth I didn't have that. I didn't have something like that to fall back on. So it's good to be able to do that, but also lean back on my past as an artist, who I was before, and implement both of those into one thing that I do now. So it's been super special to be able to identify myself as a super proud Helsik artist, and I'm just happy to be able to say that over and over again and just be super proud about it. So yeah, thank you.
Wow. It's actually, side comment, it's just so cool to hear everyone's experiences and everything about this. It makes me think about more of like how I perceive things and stuff. So I appreciate what you guys shared. Um yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, like we're none of us are the same, right? Like all our experiences have shaped us into like where we are and where we're gonna be. I guess like I mentioned earlier when I introduced myself, like I've been Haida dancing since I was a little girl, like me and Amelia dancing together our whole lives. It's just kind of how it was. Things were different back then. We didn't have what we have now. Like it's very developed now, but I'm super grateful we kept along with it. Anyway, so what I learned from that, I think, like with the dancing, and the language learning, I learned a lot of our stories and our worldviews. So like the connections we have to are supernatural beings, and like you know, like colors, like animals, those things, like it's not just for aesthetic to us. Like all of those things carry our stories, and they share like who we are and everything. So I think like taking those things and um, learning how to express them in my own way is kind of like how that's influenced my art. I like what Casey said about like making sure that his daughter doesn't feel, you know, pressure to be the next him, because I kind of understand that in a way. Like it is hard having a dad who is this monumental being. But I think like, you know, as an artist, it's so important to just like give yourself permission to express from wherever you're coming from, because like, you know, you could be right here and you shouldn't be mad if someone's right here. Like someday you'll be in your own place. Maybe you'll be up here. Like you're not going to be where they are, but you're going to grow more. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like still learning about my own artistic expression, and I think like the most important thing too, like kind of what Charlie was mentioning, like seeing our old pieces, is like those the pieces of our ancestors are like the most important teachers that we can have. They were the artists that were living and breathing our culture in like the most um I don't know, you know, like the time that it was just the most prominent. And um so in through that art you can feel that energy and everything that goes along with it. So I think that's another thing too, really important to me, just trying to study things and kind of let my growing happen organically. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you all for sharing. I love hearing, of course, I've been following you all for a long time, but to hear more about who you are and where you come from and where your artistic practice stems from is really powerful and really beautiful to witness. So our next question, the title for this exhibition beautifully emphasizes this conversation of reclaiming the narrative of Indigenous identity and governance. Among these central themes, which best reflects your current focus?
Hmm. Uh, yeah, I mean, like, man, I guess I kind of mentioned it already in the first little bit, but um, you know, just really continuing my studies heavily right now to be able to bring back those old practices that we don't really have anymore, that we lost in either the potlatch ban or just through colonization or whatever, which is a time we can't change, but I think we're all thriving more than we ever have been. It's so beautiful to see. And I really love what SJ said, where it's not about who's up here, who's down here. It's just about continuously growing as an individual. For me, as a Celtic artist, I can't even believe I could say that. It's so wild to me, but the whole journey of becoming who we are again is kind of where we're at. It was almost wiped away at one time, which um but it shows the resiliency, I guess, in our blood and who we are. And like I mentioned, it's just there's no greater feeling than when you're putting that regalia on that you made with your family, and it's like that true labor of love. um and you're it's like you're wearing the crest of, you're putting on a jersey of your country for anyone who isn't connected to culture. But in a sense, like, I just there's no bigger pride than when I put my crest on my back and I'm standing with my chief in the front of the big house, and the right stories are getting told and names are getting reaffirmed, and it's such a beautiful feeling. And I'm so grateful to be where I'm from. Like, damn, like it's a whole nother country inside Canada. It's just right here on this coast. And if you haven't been to a potlatch, I highly suggest that you go and see one and really witness the the truest, purest form on this coast is just who we are, and we're so ceremonial and connected to the animals and the water and the land, and they're not just things. Like, we're not just wearing anything on our back, and um like SJ said, it's all connected through a story. And um yeah, I don't know, I've loved learning about the history of my people through archaeology and science early in my career. And as like my dad always said, it's great to see science prove what we already know, is that we've been here for thousands of years. And I just fell in love with that, and we started connecting our language with archaeology and science, and learning more through continuous visits to old village sites. And um, my love for this whole art form, and the potlatching in general is just it's in me. I don't know. It's where I feel the most myself. And I think that's why right now, like, even though I'm like trying to survive and live, like my biggest joys are coming from carving. And in last November, I was able to gift my first mask to a chief, and I didn't share that with anybody. Like, it wasn't, I was taught like it's not to be shared or anywhere. So when I handed that over inside the big house, and I looked at the chief, who was, just grateful to have that, there's no amount of money can add up to that. And that's just where I strive right now and where I want to be for my people. So currently, that's who I am, and where this whole where how I think I connect to Indian Giver and the whole potlatching system is just like, it's who I am to the key, to the core. So yeah, I don't really want to just keep continuing on. I think I could just end it at that. And yeah, so thanks for listening to my answer on that. I think I answered it correctly, but forgive me if I didn't. And I just was trying to remember the question in my head while thinking on. So while it's guys good.
Yeah. Um, just kind of like reiterating what Charlie was just saying about the importance of potlatch and the importance of creating to gift for the right purposes, and giving, like your all, and not expecting anything from it except for being a gift for somebody who deserves it. And through the potlatch, like, I wasn't, like I told you before, I wasn't like too immersed into my culture up until just, my late 20s. And I've been to many potlatches, and, I've watched the amount of gifting that happened and all of the cool things that people were given through potlatch. And in my earlier days of my time as an artist, I did the same thing, where I gave where I was able to. I gave when it was needed. When people had requested paintings for potlatches, I was told to, jump at the opportunity, and just do it for the people. And I've done my best to do that up until, recently, where where a year ago in September, as much as I've witnessed all these potlatches, a year ago I was able to fully be actively part of our own family's potlatch, and that was the most significant thing I've ever experienced in my whole entire life. And it made me I think it shaped me differently on the outlook of the art that I'm creating, and the importance of of what I'm creating for the people. And we were able to, sit with the family, and Charlie joined in, and we painted a backdrop that was done only hours before the potlatch even started. And it was like one of the greatest feelings in my whole entire life to be able to do that. So for just a dude who was raised in the city on the street with, you know, some crazy characters in my life, it's important for me to still be able to create and give where I can, when I can. And yeah, the culture side of things is humongous to me, and it's becoming a lot. I'm starting to realize it a lot more, how important that role is now. I'd never put myself in those shoes of where I'm the type of person some people will say, and I get all these thanks and praises, and I don't expect any of it. I just want to give the gift of art because I love it so much. And there was a passion for it long before there was a need for the financial side of things, and it still doesn't matter to me. So it all I really want to do is give, and I still want to be, like I'm still new to being fully part of this culture side of things. I became an artist before I was, more knowledgeable about the culture of it. And I'm happy to say that, like I've learned a lot of that from Charlie as well. He's taught me a lot on that side of things. Um, and I'm still, I'm still learning a lot from it. It's just been a crazy journey for me. And yeah, the importance of keeping that culture moving forward. And like it's not as though you know, the culture of the art side of things had ever died down. It's just we're trying to bring it back to as strong as it was before, beyond being art gallery worthy, beyond being any of that stuff. We want it to be like, I want to be able to make a box and bring it out and leave it where it belongs. I want to be able to sit on the land and get inspired by where our people used to live, and then create then. And the importance of the actual art of it, other than, like for me as an artist, it went from studying to looking for galleries to take it, to not caring which galleries even want it, to just painting because I love it. And I went through a roller coaster of things as an artist, and now I'm realizing, I hate to say that it took me this long to realize it, but the importance of just doing it because I love it, and not, like nothing other than that. So um mostly what I have to say about it is that I did, the culture is huge for me now, and I wish it was like that a lot sooner, but life is how it is. Um, I'm in a place where I'm trying to be a full artist in one of the toughest places to live, and you know, art will always be the one thing instilled in me that I care about the most. And I'm like I said before, being able to give back when I can is one of the most important things to me. So um, yeah, I hope that gives you some insight on my thought on all that.
So we're like kind of talking about how the themes of the show tie into our art practice. Is that what we're getting at? Yeah. I think you made sense, Casey. You really are generous. You are an Indian giver. Yeah. No, I think like just like same as what we've all been saying, all those things, but okay, sorry. I'm just trying to think, like in my head, I can't help but think about when settlers first came here, and they kind of learned about the potlatch, and they were just so like they just couldn't wrap their minds around how we like move through our society like that. Like what does that have to do with creating a rich community? You know, like they just couldn't fathom like being um like a successful community, like a rich community if you're always giving things away, you know? And I think like that's a reason why this show is like so important as a discussion. Like it really showcases like um how Indian giving is impactful. And um I guess I just have so many thoughts. I'm sorry. And I'm also really jet lagged, but yeah, like uh the the act of giving something because you know that it will enrich you and other people. I think that's like something that's just so misunderstood by the rest of the world, but something that really matters to our people. And um I'm just trying to think like, okay, how does this play into my art? I feel like I talked about it in the last answer, but um yeah, I'm sorry. My brain is so tired. I flew for 24 hours yesterday. But yeah, I feel like we all wrapped that up pretty good.
Yeah. Um, Something I think I struggled with in curating the show and was how well, first of all, the polish is in a very it's kind of a tricky, it's a big topic to talk about for a first exhibition. And I really struggled trying to wrap my head around what can I say that will still be respectful to my community, that will will say what I want to say, but also, our potlatch and our ceremonies are so incredibly profound and sacred and so special to us as individuals, but as Haidas, as Celtics, as coastal people. And I really struggled with how to tell the story in a way that my community would be proud of. Um, and so somehow that yeah, I think that's what I'm taking from what everyone was saying, is reiterating reassured my own thoughts of the curating of this show. Um, During the process of preparing your works for this exhibition, did you encounter any new perspectives or questions that have shifted your focus toward a future project?
Uh, for me, yeah, definitely. I've always been really intrigued by the mastery of box designs. How they can be really simple or heavily detailed, but mostly are designed to be carved. A lot are actually just painted as well. Um, but a true treasure box, I believe, is carved, painted, um, just beautifully by masterful artists. It was the truest art form. Um, it wasn't made to be sitting in someone's house. It was sitting in a big house, holding a chief's treasures that were rightfully his. And over the course of my time studying archaeology, I was lucky to see a few in the Celtic territory and then travel to museums where I would check those out. So as I was painting the box, I just really tried to put an older style in my vision on the box and kind of draw the one side representing a Thunderbird for my father, who really I look up to as a cultural man and leader and chief now. So it's just it all came full circle, and I've recently just applied for a grant to gift four Chiefs treasure boxes that will be designed and carved by myself um, to Chiefs in my community. And even if I don't even if I wasn't able to get that grant, I still have that huge goal of doing that for my people. Because, like I said, I feel like it's kind of a lost thing for the health sick, anyways. I can't speak for anyone else, but I just think it would be nice for a chief to not be carrying their gear in Tupperware container and or a tote, and be packing it with a crest that's carved with their rightful design. So yeah, that kind of led me to doing that when I was painting that box. It just reaffirmed how important I felt those designs are and how amazing the artists were to be pumping those out in the 1850s or earlier and later. But I really felt like the mid 1800s was a time where these things really evolved into their own up and down the coast, and it just when I study books or go to a museum, I'm absolutely blown away by that. So yeah, I think my heaviest influence through painting that piece, and like I was I was lucky to help paint Casey's side, which was showed an older, bolder style, which is crazy. Like I've still yet to understand how to draw that, and it like I'm always scratching my head, like oh my god, like I just want to get to that level, but I'm accepting where I'm at currently and understanding that, like we spoke of before, is that I just need to enjoy my journey and hope one day I get there and I guess continuing my studies will help me do that and just follow through with my goals. So yeah, that's where I'm at and where kind of painting that box led me to now is um, wanting to bring that back for my people. So yeah.
Cool. Um, yeah. What this did for me was kind of opened the door to studying the way Charlie does, is studying very like a lot older pieces from our people. And I've spent years studying all the other Helsic artists who have heavily influenced a lot of what I do. And it really just opened the door for me to look deeper into to older styles. And I spent like weeks just looking at old Bentwood box images that, some of them that I was blessed to get from the late Bill McLennan, who had always sent me emails of what he thought might be Helsic or might be Simshan or what. He would always send me these images, and I never took advantage of sitting through the little catalogs he sent me when I should have. But being thankful enough to still have those in my email and still have them on record to be able to look through, I looked through all of them. And that style that I had done on that box for a long time since I'd started studying Benwood boxes, thankful to Charlie for putting me on that, was that bold style always it sat differently with me. And it was, I couldn't understand it. To me, the way I tried to interpret it was way back then, that was like I always wondered if that's a contemporary take on traditional Benwood box style way back then, because that style there were so many different things about it that I couldn't decipher, and I still can't. I may be able to mimic it, but that doesn't mean I fully understand how it even works. But in that box design that I did, the main ovoid and the centerpiece of it, the thicknesses on that ovoid are reversed. And I still don't understand why they did that. The thin parts on the top and the bolder parts down below. And I still don't understand how or why that became a thing for them in that style specifically. And they also worked with overlapping on design. Like they would have red hands over black design, which is, to me, was crazy. Like overlapping on pieces during those times, like it just really intrigued me to try and figure out, and I probably never will. They will never be able to know why they decided to do or what inspired that style of design, and that became the most intriguing thing for me. So I studied that specific box design style over and over again. I've done iterations of my own. I've tried to do my own examples of those designs strictly by memory, just by like not looking at anything, no reference. And I still, like, even with the memory that I have of studying it for so long, as soon as I'm done this whole entire piece, I still think to myself, like, it still doesn't have that exact same feel that they did when they did it. I can't replicate that on my own for the life of me. And I'm kind of glad that I can't, because to me, that specific style is just so special. It's so much more different than everything else. I know a lot of other Benwood box designs have a lot of very similar elements to them, that Charlie's been able to pinpoint and pick out and zoom in on the craziest little differences in splits and connections and how ovoids are sitting on things that in the beginning I never been able to point those things out. And Charlie being there and like pushing me to design something old school gave me the encouragement to dig deeper and look closer at things. So it really did open the door to me wanting to study even older things and practice more traditional form line. And what that did for me is, like I've been, you know, fiddling around with the idea of another solo show, because I've been asked about it like plenty of times. And we're possibly going to be going into the avenue of a transition show of where I was at the peak of my life as an artist with my contemporary style, and transitioning that slowly over to just being something fully traditional. And I really, really, really want to just practice more just traditional, full-on traditional form line now that I have the ability, now that I've done everything that you can in the books. I want to go back to the roots of it and just lay the brush down on some like real deal design as Helsing as it can be. And in the world of Northwest Coast form line, there's me, Charlie, and maybe 10 other people that do what we do from our territory. And we want to make that as significant and as special as possible. And just sticking to the roots of the classic old school Helsing form line is what this has all just opened for me. And it's kind of like a struck a new passion of now I'm just like over obsessing about all of that study thing, like honestly trying my hardest not to just sit here while listening and doodling, because then I'll lose focus on everything that's being talked about right now. But it just makes me want to again go back to the traditional roots of classical Helsing design and bring that back into the world we are now. And it's been I feel very privileged to be able to be a part of this, because it's opened that for me now, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you guys for letting me be a part of the show, and for Charlie absolutely crushing my side of the box, because during the times of when this was all going down, I had enough time to lay down half a sketch on that box. And it took me a really long time to get that sketch down, because I was really trying to emulate that style as best as I could without it looking so modern. And it took me forever. It took me forever to tweak it. And then I did have to go back to reference old images and implement them where I could and see where I was doing something that I thought was incorrect and changing those things. And like, it really humbled me. I can do things, but it doesn't mean like I can I can bring it to its full essence. So Charlie absolutely killed that side, and he got it done in a record amount of time too. So it just goes to show that like his passion for wanting to learn and wanting to paint is like at a level I've never seen before. Um, and the progress is just like incredible. So yeah, that's what that did for me. That's the door it opened for me. So thank you for that question because it really gets me thinking, and I don't initially think that way all the time. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, being in this show, I think, gave me an opportunity to express things in a way that I had wanted to before. Like I didn't have, I don't know, the time or the space to, but like I always dreamt about like bringing old pieces and art and things and kind of putting it in an environment that is like where they belong, you know? So, you know, like going in museums, you see these bentwood boxes and like spoons or headdresses, whatever, like, and it's in such a static place. It's very cold and white and gray, quiet, you know. It's just not in its natural habitat, right? Um, so being able to like paint a chest like that and um, put it in a place where I wanted to imagine it being in the future, you know, like I really, a big dream of mine and all of ours, I think, on Haida Gwaii is to have a big house someday because, you know, from visiting our friends on the coast, seeing you guys like at your big house, it's so empowering um and powerful. Like the ceremonies are just like you could feel it, you know, through your bones, like and it goes back like you feel it. I feel like it's not something I'm only feeling. It feels like lifetimes, you know, of connection. Um and yeah, I don't know. I just believe in like dreams and manifestations um, and kind of like creating those things with paintings and I just really I was really happy to do that like and kind of put that out there like okay, this is what we're going to see someday. We're going to have our big house and it's going to be surrounded by these masterful chests and piles of sea otter and jars and jars and jars of ulick grease, you know, like, and all those things are traded too, right? Like we get our otters from Alaska. Oh, the pilot biscuits are also from Alaska. The ulick grease is from the mainland and like all those different things. So it was nice to do that. And I think like completing it was um, inspiration to uh, kind of release all the other dreams that I have, you know, like all those things that I want to see brought to life again, if it's through a painting or um, regalia. I don't know yet, but like I have a lot of dreams, and I'm really excited to that we got to play around with those ideas together, and yeah.
How, I think that was kind of our last question. I just want to say how incredibly grateful and I just feel so lucky that you all accepted the invitation to be in this exhibition. Like I said earlier, it felt very right that I ask you all, and that you were the artists that were a part of this show. And I hold you all up so highly. And I'm excited to see what's next for you all and what magic you might create. I want to open it up to you three, and if you have any final thoughts before we open it up to everyone else for questions.
Oh, I did see the questions before. There was one that I really enjoyed, or I don't know. It was something I read, but there was something, and I would love to hear what they have to say. But it was something about like what your most, and we kind of also talked about it a little bit each, but like our most memorable potlatch moment or the most impactful potlatch moment, something along those lines. Do you want to?
You're right. I didn't have it in my separate file. Yes. If you all don't mind sharing exactly what SJ said, a memorable potlatch moment that you might have.
Uh, yeah, man, growing up, I really loved um part of our red cedar bark ceremony. Um, and specifically the Hamsamala, or the four cannibal birds that are connected to a really sacred ceremony. Um, and I remember the first time I was able to dance one of those masks. I had practiced like 3 or 4 times. I understood the dance though from watching since I was young, but I was so we were still in the hall currently, which, I will dance one in the big house this August, which is going to be amazing. Could top the first time I did it. But my most memorable potlatch moment was, I remember I was singing at the log, um, as I love doing, and all of a sudden they called me to the back and they're like, "Charlie, you're dancing next." And I was like, "What?" And I was kind of nervous, like it was my first time getting behind this big mask that I've always, like, in my eyes, seen as like these amazing, powerful treasures that chiefs have rights to. And so yeah, I remember I had my attendant with me, and I was the first one to come out on the floor, and the whole community hall just filled up with people. And yeah, I guess going from a state of feeling really nervous, and then right when the drum stopped and I tilted my head and I came out and I turned around, it was like there was nobody there. And the song just kind of led me through, and I just naturally was flowing. And I guess there's no real explanation of that feeling unless you've truly been behind a mask at a ceremony. And for me, that was my personal most memorable moment, and I can't believe it. Now I'm carving a mask that I'll gift to my uncle, and he will have danced in this July. So, man, something that just came full circle for me in such a beautiful way, and that was just the most incredible time personally for me, other than seeing my dad get a chief name. Um, but if we're talking about just me in general, I think that was like um living up to one of my biggest dreams. So yeah, thanks.
Um, Most memorable, there's two moments most memorable for me, and they both happened in one year. um, the first one was at Charlie's parents' potlatch, where I received, um, super special to me, um, my first Helsing name. It was amazing. And then not too long after, I received another one at my own potlatch, and it was the most amazing thing ever. Like, damn, because like I said, with identity, I didn't have culture, and it was crazy. I got my name and I went to the back and cried my eyeballs out. And then we had our own potlatch for my aunt to receive my grandma's chieftainship, Chief Walkus. Um, and that was another moment within the same year that Man, like I was able to create solely for potlatch, and I was able to sit with my family and every member of my family, and including Charlie, were able to lay their hands on a brush on this backdrop. Um, and it was just one of the most memorable moments for me. And having my daughter come in and even do some work on the backdrop as well was super amazing. And then seeing it hung up behind the drum log too was like such a great feeling, because not only was the two crests that I was requested to create hanging in one of the most beautiful rooms in the whole entire world, the most beautiful room in the whole entire world. Um, every single member of my family had that same crest on their backs, and that was such an amazing feeling. That there's nothing that can top that. I don't think when it comes to like artistic milestones, that was the one for me. So, and coming from a family who, my grandma was put into chieftainship and she wasn't really cultural, so we don't have a long history of hosting potlatches within our family. Um, it the moment to have our own and have every member of our family be fully immersed into it and care so much about what they're doing, and like all the preparation we put into it finally showing and having the room completely full was something I'll never ever forget. And being able to have my daughter and my fiance, who's not from Bella Bella, be on the dance floor with us and dancing at the end of it and passing the copper around and having such a great time. That was, like I said, nothing's ever going to top that when it comes to that side of things. So two of my most memorable moments is all that.
Loved hearing your guys' answers. Um, it's hard to choose one. I don't know for me, but I guess could I pick two as well? um, I think I'll go with an easy answer here. No. But like something that really means a lot to not just me, but a lot of other Haida people. I think when we began like our potlatch relationship or connection with our Celtic brothers and sisters, I think like that just um it it I think it kind of opened like a doorway to seeing how we used to be, before everything happened to our people. Every nation has gone through colonization and the Potlatch band so differently. And, you know, I spent a lot of time reading about the documented history of our people, um, and just reading about like how strong our ceremonies used to be, how integrated they were in, our traditional houses, and um, yeah, just like how strong our protocols were. And so like when we were able to like, be together and witness everything, how you guys um, carry forward your stories and your ceremonies, like I think that was really huge for our people, and me specifically for this answer. Um, yeah. And uh, my second answer, I think it kind of ties up our the theme of our talk in the show. It's like a little more personal. It goes back to our village. Just trying to think. So I can't even remember what year it was because the years go by so fast, but it was the year that My dad carved the pole for his house, like his house front, and um, like I'm trying to think of the best way to talk about all of it, but it how he does things like in our community, it's kind of the same with you guys. Like he's not doing it for money or notoriety. Like it's like a calling, right? Like, when you're called to make this artwork, it's just something inside you. And that's that's basically my dad. Like he's been doing it since he was like 12 years old. And like it's hard being in a society where we are dealing with so many things um, that were given to us by colonization. But I think like I'm really inspired by the strength that my parents have and how they carry it in themselves, that they're not doing these things for um, like personal reasons. It's not for like, level, like being above anybody, but it's like for the people. And that's something that was talked about at the pole raising in the potlatch. Just how the the actions that they do, the way that we have relationship to each other. It's like it's not just for me. It's not just for whatever. It's for the people. So that's that.
I'm really glad you reminded me of this question because it also got me thinking about mine, and I knew you were going to choose that one. So I started to think about another one. I know my niece Olivia is on here, and when she was just over a year old, she um, was sitting on my lap and at the potlatch. I live at a potlatch in Masset, and just over a year old, and she would not sit down. She had to see everything that was happening. She had to see every single mask and listen to every song, and she just wanted to be right in on the action. And that was the first time that I had really been able to see it through her eyes and see our world and how much, what we do through the eyes of her was something that was so incredibly special to me. And she lasted all through the night. I think that potlatch ended at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and she was so visibly tired, but just would not go to sleep. She just needed to be in it with everybody. And now for her to be 4, and she's still just right in on it. We're watching potlatch videos pretty well every day that we get to see each other. And for her to now also be dancing with her auntie Skil Jaadee and I in between us or right in front of us. And to see her excitement still is really so beautiful and makes me really proud. So I think that one's mine. Oh yeah, it's me. I think, Ali, are we ready to open it up for questions?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions they want to add into the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you could do that too. But I think we'll leave like the next 15 minutes of the discussion for questions from the audience. I actually had a question for Casey and Charlie. So I think some people may not be aware that you guys kind of worked collaboratively together on your piece in this exhibition. Could you maybe speak to your, I guess, partnership and kind of how you guys started to work together as artists?
Yeah, I can speak on it right now. First off, um, so years before Charlie had ever even picked up a pencil to try and draw, you know, anything or an ovoid or anything, he was constantly sending me old photos of his dissection of Bentwood boxes from Bella Bella, and also the distinction from a Benwood box design and other objects like a paddle, like similarities he'd seen Captain Carpenter use on a paddle that you'd see on the Benwood boxes that he was doing. And then also his interpretation on the breakdown of the Chief's chair, which is, I think, one of the greatest pieces I've ever seen in my whole entire life. And I still look at it day in and day out, like once a day at least, or once a week at least, I'd say. But he was sending me a lot of his interpretation on what he sees. And through all of it, I noticed that he started understanding more and more of how the structure of Formline was coming together. And I said to myself at one point, I was like, if I sat him down to draw something of what he's seeing by memory, he could probably do it. And before he even decided, I think, to try and draw something he's seen, he was already messing around with, like Thunderbird designs. I have one of his first ever designs on my iPad that he probably will never want to show anyone. But it's it's um it's on my iPad, and it's a Thunderbird. It's a symmetrical one, and this was like one of the earliest designs he was ever playing around with, and he had got the fundamentals of it already. He just needed a little bit of guidance to how the structure comes together, rather than what he's just seeing, but like how to sketch it out and how to draw it out. So I was showing him a lot of my older stuff, and then he had expressed to me that he wanted to start taking it a bit more serious and that he was going to ask me a lot more questions. So me being in the studio all the time, like I live in this place, um, while I'm painting, he would send me, questions and what he thought about. He still does to this day. Even just earlier, an hour before this, he was looking for my insight on the design. Um, and I was just helping him just by giving him my critical thoughts on how his things are going, and he was drawing so much and studying still so much from the jump that like the progress from the sketch I have on my iPad to what he's doing now in 3 years is a crazy launch forward. And that all ties back into what my bro Phil Gray had mentioned in a podcast that we did with my homie a long time ago, and he was speaking on me about it, about I did Benwood boxes with Latimer Gallery, and the first Benwood box I ever did for the charity was, in my mind, it rushed and it wasn't very well, refined. And then within a year later, or within that 1 year until I did the next one, someone said something to me that like hit me, and I was like, man, I got to do better if that's what people think of my artwork. So I started drilling myself into these books, into, I think Karen Duvik is in the group too, which is Transforming Image, which was my Bible. I studied that thing front to back, in and out. So within a year, I wanted to show them something. I wanted to show them something different, and that goes back to Charlie's path of learning. And you can't teach passion. You can teach someone how to draw an ovoid, but you can't teach them to be passionate about wanting to learn how to do that to the full extent, and not just being able to do it for the sake of doing it. And Charlie really does. And Vanessa's in the chat too. She's another great example of, you can't teach that passion, because not very long ago, Vanessa wasn't doing art, and now she's doing some super crazy designs within the time that she'd started doing art. So that's one thing. I hope that sticks in your mind, because you can't teach that. You can teach art, but you can't teach someone to be passionate about it. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat, and I feel like this is kind of open for all of you to answer if you'd like. If you've ever experienced artist block, what are some ways that have helped you work through it?
Yeah. For me personally, I think just diving back into those old art forms. Although Casey is a really good teacher, believe all of us can lean on the fact that our ancestors are the greatest teachers. Um, Man, the number of times I've looked at transforming image, which I currently don't have. I left in Victoria. Hopefully, it's on the way. Um, but um, yeah, I think turning on an old song, a Celtic song, I'm remembering, what it all really ties to is our culture, and that's the truest reason we could do our art. And I think that's where if I'm having some kind of problems, coming up with something, I could just really dive into those details, like Casey mentioned, and I don't know, try to find some vision through those old styles, and it just naturally, I think, maybe flows through you after. But yeah, I'm a very young artist, so I've you know I maybe don't have as much experience coming through that, but I think for the time being, I just always try to look at something old. And I came to a point where I was just drawing so much that I don't really I wasn't really looking at things, and I felt like I was veering off and trying to get super modern. But I recently was starting to look more at some old things, and feeling that inspiration to keep it OG. So yeah.
Can I just share something that I learned before? Um, I took a drawing course so many years ago. I don't want to say how old I was and how many years ago it was, because it was a long time ago, maybe like 15 years ago. Um, they had a Haida formline course in Skidegate, hosted by Ben Davidson. And he was such an excellent teacher for um, teaching the basics and like just like
Why?
oh, teaching you like how to
Huh?
use your mind. Okay.
What? Okay.
So okay. I keep thinking I'm interrupting somebody. um, but the best thing I think that he taught me that I still remember now is like he would always sketch like with his like just tracing paper, and I think maybe even a pen too, when you're just getting your basic ideas out there. And he would get the idea out, and instead of like if he made a mistake or he wanted to change something, he wouldn't get rid of it. He would keep it and then get a new one and like start again. And I think basically what he was saying is like you don't get rid of your old ideas, you like make sure you have them, and then you move forward with how you want to move forward with that. And then if you're ever like um, if you're ever finding like down the line, you can figure out like how to make that original thing work. And like all these different things can grow from one original drawing. um, so yeah, I thought that was cool, and I still like carry that with me.
Um, for myself, I tend to get into quite a bit of artist blocks, mainly because I think like my mind is continuously thinking about 20 different things all at once. If you're in my studio, you'd be able to tell that I got like 4 canvases started and 4 canvases unfinished. Because on a day where I don't know if it's like attention deficit, I'm rotating between canvases sometimes every hour. But a lot of the times I don't even know like what I'm really picking away at. I'm just doing something to for the sake of doing something. And when I get into like a block of not knowing what to really do, I draw. I just doodle. And for me, what helps is I I I actually doodle on paper every single day, or I draw something every single day. There's not a day where I don't, and if there is a day when I don't, I get kind of annoyed that I didn't get to draw something. Um, whether it's on my iPad, whether it's on a piece of paper or on an envelope, I'm always doodling on something. So even when I have no idea of what to come up with or a concept, all of these millions of little sketches, there might be something that's worth turning into something more. But at the time of when I'm just brainlessly doodling, I don't see it at the time. But you know, it could be just me letting out the back burner expressions out on a piece of paper, and then it turns into something. And one of those was it translated actually over to like a history maker's T-shirt design that we did, which was like a little ovoid man. And he was kind of like a little character type dude, and I wanted to create something similar to that, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I was like, oh, I drew something in an iPad on my iPad just like really quickly, and it was just an ovoid, and I just drew like Mickey Mouse hands and legs coming off of it, and I sat there forever, and then like I went into it and I fully colored the whole thing in, and it turned out to be something super cool, and that was I hit a block, and then I went back to those millions of sketches that I've done, and I have envelopes of them. One day should even release a book or do a show of the amount of sketches I have in paper. But to get through that artist block, I did for me. I don't know if it would work for everyone else, but just drawing every day. Like I draw every single day whenever I get the chance, even if it's sitting down for 5 minutes. I'm still drawing something, and that's one way I get through it. But yeah, it happens more than I like to admit, actually. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I think that's a good place to stop. We are kind of right at time now. Um, But I just wanted to thank all of our panelists today for joining us and for Amelia for moderating this discussion. If any of you who are just watching tonight haven't seen the exhibition yet, the last day to view it is Saturday, so I hope you're able to come by. And if not, the exhibition was really beautiful. We do have some photos on the social media and everything, but yeah, thank you everybody for joining us this evening, and we hope you all have a great evening. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.